Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Greg Elliott, and as always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, GW15. How you doing, Zach?
Hello, mate. We're one step closer to the game against Tottenham and one step further away from the game at Villa on last Saturday.
Yeah.
So,
Before we fully put it away and lock it in the vault to never be looked at again, it is Tactics Tuesday, so we're going to break down the tactics of the game, of which there were some, and see where we need to change to improve against Tottenham. I guess we haven't really got long enough to talk about all the areas that need improving, but I guess I'll start with a couple of observations I had. So we actually changed shape 3 times through the course of the game. Once at half time, we went from a 5-back to a 4-back, and then as we were sort of pushing on more towards the end of the game, we actually dropped into some sort of wacky hybrid 3-back formation, which actually ended up just leaving Nathan Wood exposed at the back on his own time and time again. But actually, our biggest problem the entire game seemed to come down our right-hand side, which was interesting. Like all 3 shapes, I saw the same thing, where the ball came down the right, and we just didn't have any answers for it at all. Now, we had Manning and Walker-Peters both playing out on the left, from what I could tell, and that really seemed to leave us exposed on that side. And yeah, I don't know what the answer or solution to that is, but it is something that I noticed.
Rodgers had a really good game as well. Let's not take credit away from the fact that Villa also played really well. I feel like Watkins had more than an ample opportunity to make it the scoreline a lot higher than it was. I think he, maybe it threw him off being taken off the bench a couple of into the game. But yeah, it was a strange one, and it seemed to we seemed to do a little bit better after the shape change after half time and sort of bring it on a rebo. But it was just a bit of an odd one. Nothing really got going. And like the key stat that you're missing out of all of that is not just where we're exposed, mate. It's the fact that, and we discussed it last episode, we didn't have a shot on target.
Yeah.
Not a single shot on target.
I was getting around to that. I was just starting at the other floor.
You start the other way. I guess 1 goal conceded is better than 5.
Yeah.
There you go. There's a happy.
And I like Bree, but clearly he wasn't getting the support he needed, presumably from Dibbling in front of him. It was just a bit odd that it was always down that side. What do we think of Walker-Peters playing as a centre-back?
Why? That's not where he plays. Stop it.
Although, that's what he's written down as, but I mean, I didn't.
It's not really how he played, is it? To be honest, at one point he was pretty much playing up front.
Plays wherever on the pitch he wants because he is our best player and can get away with that.
Maybe that's part of the problem, though. That if shape seemingly doesn't matter because our entire game plan is to hold on to the ball and then win off of running down the clock and hopefully pipping a goal in. Right? That's kind of how it seems to be nowadays. But yeah, it is hard, and I find it fascinating when you look at the various different news outlets trying to work out how we've lined up, putting just like random players, it's like slotting them into whatever positions they want, and you got to wonder how they feel about it. But again, it's silly mistakes at the end of the day.
We talked earlier in the season about this, sticking to a back 5 formation that didn't suit anyone, and sure, we've looked a little bit more comfortable in it as we've sort of progressed through the season, but also it has to be said we're on 5 points. So
I was about to say we look a bit more comfortable in it. How many games have we won, mate? I think what the problem is, and this is where some of the conversation around accepting mediocrity comes in. It's we look like we've grown into it. And by grown into it, it means we're not conceding 3 or 4 goals. We're still conceding. We're still making dumb mistakes. And this is the problem is do we need an extra person at the back just to shore up the mistakes being that dumb? Maybe we just need to go back to a 4 to make sure we actually have people covering one another. it's going back to almost the stuff at the beginning of the season before, right? The beginning of the championship season where we had that losing streak where we lost like 5-0 to Sunderland, and it was like getting back to defend. It's almost like we need to give everybody that lesson again, but also making sure that if you have 95% passing accuracy, but the 5% that isn't accurate is passing directly to the opposition to score, doesn't really matter. And
No, you're
yeah.
right. And then you're right. The other part that we need to move on to is the creativity going forwards, because it's non-existent. In the extended highlights, I watched them back and I've counted, and we had 4 what I would call less than half chances in the entire game. All right, like we had the man in shot. Cameron Archer went through on goal and held onto the ball slightly too long, so the defender got back and blocked a shot. And there was one earlier in the game where Archer had a shot blocked from just inside the box, and all of them came from counter attacks.
Yeah, funny that.
Which is not really what we're known for.
No, but that says a lot. That says how is it. I feel like what's happening is that a lot of players are falling back on the way they've been taught how to play football beforehand, and you can see that Russell Martin's getting wound up with it. Lumley specifically, he's getting wound up with him because again he kicked the ball out, and he's bad at kicking the ball out. We've also established this. Like I don't really mind how he plays because quite frankly, if he plays that from the back, it's terrifying. But when he kicks it out, he passes it straight to the opposition anyway. He's our 4th choice goalkeeper, so that's gonna happen.
Also, I think he might have got a little bit lucky because there was half a shout for a penalty when he missed the ball, and thankfully the ball was going away from goal, so they're more likely to not give it, but perhaps a little bit fortunate.
Yeah, I think they're just tactical instruction seems to be kind of a bit bizarre, and again, like with the threat coming off the bench isn't exactly inspiring, but it's the creativity and the attacking sort of outlet that is the most upsetting because even when they have the ball in the box, you just don't feel like the ball's going in, and then they spend far too long trying to decide what to do with it, trying to decide where to pass it. I've saw a couple of instances as well of where people like dibbling and crossing it over and then suddenly realizing that no one's there, but after they've already launched the ball. And it's because I'm guessing they're trained to run into these channels, but they're either not run into these channels or it turns out that they have to deal with the opposition players because there is an opposition on the field. So yeah, it's just a bit weird, and I think that it doesn't really matter how we line up at the back. If all of the players are going to come forward regardless and then not do anything, of course we're going to get caught. It's like because everyone's up front doing nothing, and then all of a sudden they got to try and sprint back. And again, I think there's a lot to be said about your comments previously about fitness. It seems to just be like none of our players can do 90 minutes without wanting to die. And
yeah, it's crazy, right?
I don't know why.
When we
It's
were
so
so
strange.
famed for it in the past, it's really such an interesting one. And I think I said it last week, and I think it comes back to it again. I just think Russell Martin's too nice to be an effective manager. He's too pally with the team, and there's a time and a place for that. And there's a very solid and reasonable argument to be made that was exactly what we needed last season to unify us in a club that was at a real low point. But I don't think that's what we need now. I think we need to play better, and
if he
be a bit
goes
harsh on the
now, there'll
team.
be a wake up call for a lot of those players because there'll be people, whichever manager comes in, you're not gonna Nathan Jones was almost awe inspired by the fact he was playing in the Premier League, so that's why he had no respect for the players because he was
He could have
basically
gone off and married a Welsh PE teacher. So.
yeah, but do you know what I mean? He even admitted himself, maybe he gave the players too much respect. He was like, oh, they're Premier League players. So then they could get away with whatever, and they did. Ruben Sellers, bless him, just tried his best. I'm really happy for him to be at Hull, to be honest. And then, sort of Russell Martin unified the players in that way, and I think that's fantastic. But from a sort of management perspective at the moment, they seem to be able to get away with anything. I don't know if he's blasting them behind closed doors, but if they really like him and they love the project as much as they let on, they're going to have a harsh wake up call if he goes, and all of a sudden they're having to deal with somebody that actually calls them out on their BS. Because I think that this is some of the problem that we've got is that from a tactical perspective, if we should be playing this specific way, it's and in a specific way, it's not paying off, and it's hard to put all of that down to the way that Russell Martin is getting them to line up when ultimately it's the individual errors that are costing us. So I don't know. From
I want to
obviously,
circle back to
yeah,
tactics, and I want
my bad.
to talk about personnel.
That's fair.
But first, a message from our partners at Zencastr. So here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. Okay, so we talked a bit after Chelsea about the importance of the personnel we were missing and the effect that would have had on us. Obviously, going into Saturday against Villa, we were still missing two very key players in Ramsdale and Bednarek. Do you think, hypothetically, obviously, do you think if they were back in the team that we might have won that game? Like, is their importance to our team that much that we'd have, with them on the pitch, we would have performed better than we did? Do you think?
You could argue the mistake by Lumley wouldn't have happened because Lumley wouldn't have been in goal. You could argue, I'd say that Wood did a fine job stepping in for Jan. I don't think that made much of a difference. As bad as it's been and as bad as it's probably going to get, we are playing our fourth choice goalkeeper, which is insane when you think about it. And our third choice isn't that much better anyway. Our second is out long term. Missing Ramsdale means that it could have been much worse than it's been. Sorry, missing Ramsdale means that it's probably worse than it could have been. But I don't.
I've heard from a couple of sources that he's in contention to be back in time for this Tottenham game.
That'd be nice, but
so
yeah, it's difficult.
Do you think that that's because, like, our system is so based on playing out from the back, so they're obviously essential roles, and like Nathan Wood, like you say, I don't think he had bad game. Is not having a bad game the same thing that Yanni B brings to the team when he's in? Because he seems to be this focal point again, a bit like Adam Lallana when he's on the pitch and can survive more than 20 minutes, where he sort of raises the players around him and inspires the confidence and creates a lot of the forward plays. Like, obviously his job is centre back to defend, but actually because we play out, it's the taking the ball under pressure and making the plays forward that's, I think, the more important part of his game for us. And I guess without Yanni B, we've been playing Kyle Walker-Peters at centre back, and it's just
it's crazy because, like, the amount, for starters, it's the amount of centre backs and defensive personnel we purchased to end up losing one and then seemingly playing not centre backs and centre backs roles. Kind of mad anyway. But again, like, I don't know. The Yanni B is an interesting one because I think that he is far more important to the team than most people understand and let on. I will also point out though that, like, I think the key point that you made is playing out from the back requires a keeper of almost Ramsdale's quality. Problem is with Ramsdale is he doesn't have Ramsdale level quality of players around him. So playing with our fourth choice goalkeeper is exposing how bad these things can be when you have a problem like that with an injury. We've got strikers who we would prefer to probably have on the pitch at the moment. Tall Paul, Ross Stewart, as much as I don't like to say it, but can hold the ball up a lot better. So we're missing some key personnel, but then that kind of says that maybe what we should have done was let Maka go at the end of the season and brought in a really good backup goalkeeper in case anything ever happened to Ramsdale. Obviously, you don't want to pay a lot of money, but they took the risk in only having, spending all this money on Ramsdale and having such a solid first choice that they didn't really think about what would happen if they didn't have that first choice in contention. But I do think you're right. I don't know if it changes the result, just with the way that the morale is around the camp, the way that we're playing at the moment, the fact that we can't seem to score. I think you could have had 400 minutes without us scoring, if I'm totally honest. I don't know if, we had only conceded one goal in that 400 minutes with just a Ramsdale on the pitch as opposed to 50, 60, which we could have if Lumley was there. But then also, like, he's also made his fair share of passing directly to the opposition this season as well. So it's something to think about, but I think that it has a much bigger effect than people are estimating, and it might ultimately end up costing Russell Martin his job. A broken finger is kind of crazy if you think about it, but if you tie all those little sort of events together, it could be the thing that breaks the camel's back.
Yeah, and you're right, but it is mad that there's a lot of talk about our squad and how big it is, right? And it's too big, and we need to move players on, but it's way for thin. There's no depth to it, is there? It's really upsetting.
We have a lot of players. We have a lot of people that, again, like ultimately you could just start. One of our best transfers this season, as I keep pointing out, is an 18-year-old from our academy. It's not someone we've paid money for. This is somebody that we've developed, and it's nuts because you look at sort of how much money we've spent recently on but that's the other thing is we've not really spent that much money. We've gone all and out for this goalkeeper that we needed to play this system. What we really should have done is go all out for a striker that can also complement the system.
Yeah.
And we kind of haven't. And that's no real disrespect to Archer, but he's just, he's not scoring. And maybe it's because he's not getting the service.
For me,
but
it's really hard to judge Archer because actually what I see from him in a game is really promising and really good, and he gets himself in the right positions. And I see from the stands, time and time again, him making a really good run just for someone to turn around and pass it backwards. And it must be really frustrating for him. And yeah, he's not like deadly clinical in front of goal, but also he's only getting 1 or 2 chances a game maximum. Like, I've seen
but
Haaland
surely we
miss
knew this would
6
happen, though.
shots a game consistently.
We knew this would happen. It's why they brought in Ross Stewart to hold up the ball and play up the top and be a big target guy, because the amount of time they spend passing it back. So this is what I find it. I just find it some weird recruitment. I don't know if it's just that he was a striker that was available, right? Because that's what it feels like. Ben Brereton Diaz, available striker after Sheffield United went down, and he was kind of in limbo. And Cameron Archer, another one that's kind of been sort of a journeyman in his career so far, was available, is a striker, someone we needed to replace Che Adams, who, seeming to be living it up in Italy. I don't know how much it is anymore. And at the beginning of the season, he was having a great time. But yeah, it's just, I think that the service is also, but then how can we talk about how we've got these amazing players going forward, such as Matty Fernandez and Tyler Dibbling, and then also that we're not creating anything because we're not scoring. So it's such a juxtaposition as to, if we've got all this attacking talent on the field, what is the problem? Why can they not get it through? Like, I don't understand what it is where they are not willing to take a shot off. That's what I'm kind of baffled by, because if everyone around him starts scoring, maybe Archer will up his game and start scoring too. I don't want to put it down to basic psychology like that, but also, like, who knows at this point?
Okay, I want to move on to shapes and thoughts against Tottenham briefly before we wrap up. But first, a message from our partners at the Global Sports Podcast Network.
The Global Sports Podcast Network is changing the face of football podcasting with dedicated daily content for every Premier League team, women's football, fantasy football, and a daily Premier League wrap-up broadcasted in 5 different languages. This is your one-stop shop for your daily football fix. Find GSBN wherever you find your usual podcasts.
Okay, right. This is as close to analysis and punditry as you're going to get on the podcast. Here's my thoughts, right? Ange Postecoglou has a very distinctive style of football, much like Russell Martin, but different. He likes to be front-footed and defending from the front, pressing very high and holding a very high defensive line. So now there's 2 schools of thought going into this game, and the way my brain defaults to mentioning this is going to upset some people. So there's 2 schools of thought, right? The first is that playing the Russell Martin way of football, we are going to get absolutely demolished by a team who are designed to high press. It's as simple as that. And so my second train of thought is, and this is the bit that's going to upset some people, or is that a better manager would change the system and play to the strengths of a striker whose core skill set is the perfect opportunity to take advantage of that high line and high defensive line, because Cameron Archer's skill is, and his core strengths are spinning in and running in behind, which is the perfect way to play against a high defensive line. And so if we don't see that, it's going to be really upsetting. As and my concern is, I don't see us doing that. Like, but if I, as a amateur pundit and analyst, someone who just watches a lot of football and takes it from that, can see that. Is there hope that our analysis team can also spot that and play that way? Do you think that we can change it enough? Do you think we can change it and stick with the bravery and make that our way? Right, that's the hope.
So let's play 5 at the back. Let's put Sugar on the right. Let's put Carl Peters on the left. Let's shove Wood, Yanni B, and Taylor Harwood-Bellis right in the middle. And let's just do the same thing we do every week. And maybe this time, mate, will pay off. And we'll beat Tottenham 4-0, and you'll be sacked. Russell Martin will be the new saviour again, and everything will be fine. How about that instead?
Really upsetting that I've identified a key weakness that we could expose, and we're just going to do the same thing we've done every week.
It's going to be basically the same lineup. There might be a change here and then, or maybe you'll do something exciting and go 4 at the back and try. And I won't be surprised if maybe this is finally the time we see Toole, Paul, and Archer together. Just maybe he'll do something different and he'll finally cave to fan pressure where we think playing 2 strikers might be advantageous.
This is a deep cut comparison, right? This is a dated reference that is going to alienate half of our listenership. But back in the day, Sven-Goran Eriksson famously had a preference for picking Emil Heskey, and no one really understood why, because he wasn't very good. And there was a comedy sketch by a famous impersonator who was doing a load of football skits at the time on the BBC, and it was basically saying how insane Sven-Goran Eriksson was, but that was like playing to his strengths. And so they had a line up in the paper, and he's got Pope John Paul III left mid. And this manager's just like, yeah, classic Sven, keep him guessing. He's like, and he's got Queen Elizabeth II in goal. It's like, brilliant, classic Sven. It's like, and Heskey up top. He's like, that's it, he's got to go. He's mad ridiculous. That's what I felt like talking about, this is the way we should play heading into this game. And you're right, it's just going to be
the same,
exactly the same.
Unless a new manager's in, or an interim manager, or Lallana ends up taking over the club. Why not? Stranger things have happened, and because I feel like that would be what happens, because there'll be an absolute panic mode because they have no idea who else will do the football side of things.
Or they'll wait for me coaching badge boss. I'll step in. That's it.
It's like that, them talking about how great the transfers have been. Again, it's been really hit and miss. Hit and miss is probably the difference between us having 15
more
points
miss than hit, mate. Honestly.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's me giving too much credit to some
obviously, Harwood-Bellis and Downs, known quantities because they were just signings off the back of loans. Matty Fernandez, who's been a sensation for me, consistently one of the best players on the pitch, right up there in quality with Carl Walker-Peters. And that might be where the really positives stop, right? Like that, I'll hear and Yuki's been all right.
Yeah, I think he's had more stinkers recently than good games. At the start, he was very good. But again, I think there's a lot of positivity at the start.
Seems to be coming good, and it's fine. But that's it, mate. That's where the list ends. And there are a lot more signings than that. Like Adam Lallana, great quality player when he's on the pitch. Unfortunately, once he steps on the pitch, that's it. Muscle gone. Allergic to grass. What can you do? What can you do?
Will this be 2 episodes in a row where I need to try and be the one to send us out on a positive? If it is the same at least we know what to expect.
Yeah, we probably won't get battered, but we will still lose. So
yeah, there you go. Which is all we can hope for at this point. As long as it's and then we know all the sound bites. The only thing I will say this time round is I hope he doesn't blame all of the wonderful fans who go to the effort of attending these games and watching this in person.
7:00, right? Can we talk a little bit briefly before we fully?
I'm happy to talk about it. I know it's
7:00
Tactics
on
Tuesday,
Sunday
but
night. What joke's that?
that's insane. Like, because it's like the lack of respect for people's time is ridiculous to just for broadcasting rights.
Like,
It's
as someone
absolutely
who
mad.
takes their kids to the football, I have two, primary school age children who attend the matches with me, and I accept that there are midweek games that are later than this, and sometimes they go, and sometimes they don't go, and I bring someone else along, and that's fine. But 7:00 on a Sunday, game's gone. It's mad, isn't it?
It's one of those things where
There are
if we went
so
back,
many other time slots on a Sunday that would be more convenient.
yeah, but it's more convenient for you and the fans, not more convenient for all of the money that they can make off of TV, mate. This is the
Like,
problem.
and I mean, I bet. I mean, from an away fan perspective,
It's nuts, absolutely nuts. Because
and I mean,
Sunday's not a good time for trains either. I can tell you
no,
that for nothing.
no, and I'm not even convinced there will be a train back to London after the game on Sunday because they stop pretty early going that way. They come back from London a lot later than they go out, and so, and that's it's only a London club, so it's only really down the road from us. But imagine if it was Newcastle coming down. You'd have no chance.
Well, even with the storm yesterday, mate, there were people struggling to get back for sort of 11 midnight, and
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing. And like, luckily, I think luckily you got one central line, but yeah, 7:00 games can get in the bin. That's there you go. Room 101. 7 p.m. Sunday games
Yeah.
get in the bin. Wait, which episode are we doing?
That's it.
We've probably got more things that we could be mad about if anyone fancies listening to that for tomorrow's episode, or maybe we'll have something more exciting. I guess we'll see. But
Do a
yeah,
30-minute rant on referees and 7:00 kickoffs.
yeah, it's not hard, is it?
How TV is ruining football. There we go. That's.
But I hope we never get sponsored by anything to do with TV, mate. It's one of those things. Like, at the moment, it's hard, and I think the turning point's been hit. And there's a lot of emotions across the board that are high between the players. You can see clearly. Russell Martin says he's enjoying it, but that's you don't start snapping at your fans and snapping at the media unless you're under a lot of pressure. And he is only human. Likewise, the directors that are bouncing around trying to figure out how all of their money works are also human, so probably aren't exactly these levels of godlike intelligence that we think they are. They're probably scrambling, so they're like, oh, we didn't expect it to be this rubbish.
I think that
And
you might be
likewise,
overestimating the value that some of our fans put on that. Their perspective,
mate, I'm hoping that they can read between the lines when I said godlike intelligence. Put it that way.
All right.
But at the end of the day, you're all here. We're all supporting this team. We've been through tougher times. We will go through tougher times still.
And look,
We've
I
still
said it
got
to
the
you off
rest
the
of the
air.
season.
I said it to you off the air. It's just part of the process. It's part of the process this early in the week to be feeling the pain. By Friday, I'll be screaming from the rooftops that we're going to win 6-0 and go on
Whereas
to
I
the
will not
Champions
be.
League. So
I will be sat quietly telling Greg, I told you, and he'll be mad and upset. But that's just because that's my job.
all right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today for some tactical analysis and a lot more waffle. But that is
My bad.
the name of the game, mate. That is our selling point at this point. So thank you very much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow with Wildcard Wednesday, and we look forward to seeing you then.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.